This year, I've spent hundreds of hours upgrading everything in Minecraft, creating the ultimate survival world. Every single in-game structure and major biome is getting a crazy upgrade, all to elevate your Minecraft survival experience to a whole new level. There'll be hundreds of secrets, hidden loot, side quests, treasure hunts, interactive areas, and story-related elements for you to explore with your friends, all in a survival-friendly world spanning across 16 million blocks. So, what's on the building agenda for today? Well, so far, we've tackled the plains, the desert, which includes the beaches, the mushroom and swamp, the darkwood forest, and the jungle. We're making great progress with the project with only the mesa, savanna, taiga, snowy mountains, and other realms left to upgrade. Today, we're going to be grabbing our cowboy boots and heading into the mesa, bringing the Wild West into Minecraft survival for you guys. Now, the mesa and savanna were going to be in the same video, since their stories overlap, but we had so many building ideas for each biome, I had to split them up to give you one last video for the year. So, for today's episode, we're in the mesa, and here's what's in store. We're going to be creating a much needed custom village for the biome, which will, of course, be a little Wild West town, a giant railroad spanning across the entire canyon, and a huge gold mine area, packed with buildings, cranes, caves, minecart systems, camps, and more. If you'd like me to finish this project so that you can download it via my Patreon, along with all of my other builds, then make sure that we hit the 250k like goal and click that subscribe button. Let's keep this hype up for an early 2022 release. Remember, Steph and I do all of this alone, so your guys' support and ideas mean a lot to us. We're going to be working extra hard the next few months to make sure that we get this map finished for you guys. Now, if it's more backstory that you're after, then be sure to head over to the TrixyBlox channel after this video to check out the first episode of the Ultimate Survival World movie. You'll get to see the story unravel in the map itself in a narrated movie style, which is designed to enhance your experience when you play the map for yourselves. And with no spoilers, of course. As well as that, our brand new merchandise has just launched. Steph and I, with the help of our Discord admin Squinty, have worked really hard to create a variety of affordable, wearable designs printed on plenty of different products for you guys. So go ahead and nab a poster or a hoodie at TrixyBloxStore.com. or via the link in the description. You definitely don't want to miss out on this. Anyway, let's jump into the video and get this mesa started. To kick things off, I decided to do a little bit more terraforming than I first planned for this biome. I wanted this biome to feel like an enhanced version of how this kind of environment looks in the real world, with plenty of stacks to break up the landscape to make for some more exciting survival exploration and adventures. And as usual, I spent far too long fiddling with the terraforming, since the main goal here is to make sure you guys are fully immersed in this world. Eventually, after many hours of tweaking and adding cacti instead of classic old broccoli trees, I was happy with the environment and ready to move the vanilla town out of the way to upgrade it. And yes, I had to add my own vanilla town since the mesa doesn't spawn its own naturally. Bit rude of Mojang to leave them out, really. Now, to start on our village, which will actually be based on my interpretation of a Wild West town, I'm building our first building, which is the weaponsmith. When planning this village, Steph and I realised that so many professions suit this biome, which led us to incorporating a whole bunch of building types, some of them corresponding with in-game Minecraft professions, and others based on what sprung to our minds when we thought about the Wild West. As you can see, I've tackled both the weaponsmith and toolsmith Minecraft professions, mainly from a more realistic, practical standpoint, but also because I love the idea of a steampunk Wild West. Imagine all of the cool steampunk mining tools that they could create. Next up, I just had to include a leather worker. Honestly, I don't think I can imagine a single Wild West scene in my head without copious amounts of leather involved. I topped off the building with a little water tower and scattered some barrels, another Wild West staple for some decoration. Now, to honour Minecraft's dungeons, I had to incorporate a little jail into our western town, along with a classic sheriff's office. Having said that, this town was actually founded by a group of outlaws, who journeyed across the USW's biomes, wreaking havoc for years, before invading the mesa and settling there, destroying the resident wolf tribe's village and chasing them away to the savannah. I'll let Steph tell you more about the lore in her USW movie series. But for now, let's continue with these village buildings. As you can see, I decided to get a bit more colourful for our bank and hotel buildings, and if you look at real Wild West towns, some of them were actually pretty colourful too. I decided to add a bit of height variation with the hotels as well, and I am of course doing all the interiors. I'm just not going to show you guys, since I don't want to ruin the surprise for when you play the map for yourselves. Before you start panicking, don't worry. We are of course building a saloon. Our resident outlaws definitely deserve a drink after all that looting and pillaging. Well, maybe they don't, but there's no way I could deny our mesa miners a cold drink when they come to visit. Just wait until you see where they have to work every day. For our place of worship in this biome, I took a little bit of inspiration from history and included a church. Having said that, a lot of old western towns didn't have the luxury of a dedicated church building, and some services were even held in the saloon. Anyway, I'll be changing up our place of worship again in the next biome, so please do let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll try my best to include it. And if you don't see it in this map, I'm sure you'll see it in the next. And finally, to finish up our village buildings, I created a little house. I envisioned a lot of our villagers having sleeping quarters above their businesses, but there is one house. I wonder who lives here. I wonder if they have a story. I guess you'll have to find out about that in the movie series and when you play the map for yourselves. Now it's finally time to place all of our buildings, sticking to a classic cul-de-sac style of placement, which I think we all typically associate with Wild West towns. Real Western towns often look quite different to this movie-like interpretation, but they did often run parallel to a railroad, which we'll bring to life in the next segment of this build. To decorate the village, I of course had to include a water tower. Water towers were actually used to supply water for steam trains along the railroad lines, so they're much more than just a cool looking decoration. To go hand in hand with the water tower, I built a windmill. These windmills were actually used to pump water, which would be stored in the water towers, and that's why you often see them depicted together. I also built a stagecoach, which would have been used to transport passengers from place to place, and came up with a couple of smaller wagon designs, a well, a stack of barrels, and some gallows. Perhaps a little morbid, but often history can be. And to finish up this segment of the build, I scattered the decorations around our Wild West town. I think these finishing touches really bring a build to life. Now it's time to move on to our railroad network. To link this up nicely to the village, I whipped up a station and a platform and included another water tower close by to make sure our trains have plenty of access to water. That is what steam trains run on after all. I added in some decorations, the beginnings of a very long track, and incorporated a classic railroad tunnel as a finishing touch. Obviously, I had to build a train to ride these tracks, so I built a little steam train. Now since this is all survival friendly and on a relatively small scale, this was quite a challenge, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. I added the finer details, including the various stacks and domes on top, and the pilot, which is often known as a cowcatcher, at the front, before moving back to build the cab. After making lots of tweaks to the front of the train, I built a coal cart to follow closely behind the cab, ready to fuel it up, and then I built some carriages for passengers behind to finish this first train up. Since I'm building such a huge railroad, I really had to build another train to go round it. I copied the same design for the front, but this time designing the carriages for transporting materials and goods rather than passengers. You'll notice the gold and coal in the back of the carriages, which have been transported from the huge mines that we'll be tackling shortly. Before we move on to the mines though, we have an enormous railroad to tackle. And of course, rather than making this easy for myself, I plotted out a route that winds around the whole canyon, making twists and turns and taking diagonal routes across the landscape. It literally took hours for Steph and I to plot out this route, but it was definitely worth it. The whole canyon has been brought to life. Now, since this track is so expansive and we have 2 trains heading around it, I had to incorporate another station with a little water stop to get our trains more water, since early steam trains would need to stop for more water every couple of hours depending on their journey and load. To support our huge railroad, I created a trestle bridge, inspired by the Goat Canyon Trestle in California. Timber trestle bridges not only have an iconic look, but they were usually seen as a more temporary structure, which is why I chose to use them here. I really wanted this canyon to seem as though it is in its prime, bustling with new activity in the USW's own mini gold rush period. Trestle bridges are actually very strong, which is why similar designs have been used for wooden roller coasters over the years. Luckily, I was able to create a more modular trestle bridge design to support the railroad, although I did have to manually build the corner pieces, which took quite a long time, but it was definitely worth investing the time because these bridges really elevate the landscape to a whole new level. And after the painstaking process of finalizing the trestle bridge design around the entire railroad, it's time to move on from our train network and head to the mines. To kick off the mines, I took my crane design from the Jungles mines and placed it down in the canyon, which may seem odd at first, but hear me out. When the outlaws took over the mesa, they were mostly driven by greed, having heard that the land was full of gold and valuable resources. When they first came to the canyon to begin mining the land, they discovered an ancient tunnel, which led to the inter-biome mining network. This ancient network connects several biomes via giant underground tunnels. You may remember me mentioning it when we tackled the jungle. So, the crane design here is the same as the jungle's because the outlaws travel to the ancient jungle city, stealing the crane design for their own mines and saving themselves lots of planning time. Let's just hope that they haven't stolen all of the jungle mine's resources by the time that you get to play the map for yourselves. Anyway, as you can see, I'm building several overhanging mining buildings on stilts, incorporating a lift with several different levels so that the miners can move resources around easily, mainly refining coal and gold, ready to be transported around the USW. With all of these extra buildings, this is really shaping up to be a little mining town of its own. But don't worry, I won't spoil the interiors for you, you'll just have to wait and see those for yourself. One building I really loved creating was this sluicing mine. This method of mining is often depicted with an exaggerated building with crazy pipes all over the roof, and it's something I remember seeing as a kid. Steph said it's from Club Penguin, but I digress. Sluicing uses sloping water channels to break down the earth containing gold. So our mesa miners will be beavering away in the caves, dumping a mixture of gold and earth into their mine carts and sending it up for the sluicing to get the end product. But of course, there are different materials and methods being used across these mines. So a larger crane was definitely necessary here. Now we haven't yet tackled the pillager outpost, and I thought that it would be a great addition to the mines. The mesa is home to the outlaws anyway, so you would certainly expect to see a few outposts and watchtowers overseeing their precious mines. To keep some consistency between the outposts across different biomes, just like vanilla Minecraft, I repurposed the outpost I created for the plains, redesigning the roof in a more western style, and changing up some of the materials and finer details to differentiate it further. I then added a more temporary campsite for those stationed at this watchtower, as they would have different duties to the miners and would likely move from outpost to outpost, since I placed another 2 around the mining canyon. Since there are going to be so many materials and supplies coming in and out of this mining area, I knew that I had to add in an extra train station here, just next to the outpost so that the workers can easily catch a train back to town if need be. And finally, to create our actual gold mines. Now, without giving too much away, I've dug out several tunnels weaving through the canyon, incorporating a whole minecart track network as well. It's honestly like a miniature roller coaster. If only mining was this fun in real life. To finish up this area, I added in some stairs to connect up to the cranes so that our mesa miners can operate them without clambering up the side of the canyon. I also incorporated some extra platforms and pathways, creating a dock area near the water's edge to provide another means of transporting goods from the area, with another dock at the town to receive goods and send out supplies. To come up with some final decorations, I copied some of the wagon designs from the main town, changing their contents to dynamite and ores gathered from the mines. Then, I built a custom wagon to transport a larger load of dynamite and TNT, before finally creating a smaller crane based on a previous design that I made to load and offload goods around the dock area. I scattered these decorations across the mining canyon and placed down 2 steamboats that I previously designed from my survival series with Steph. I also mixed in raw gold, iron and coal blocks into the piles of barrels, just to add a little variation. And with that, the mesa is complete. And that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching and keeping up the hype for the project. Don't forget to like the video so that we can hit the 250k like goal if you want me to continue this project. Remember to go check out the first episode of the USW mini movie episode over on the StephBlox channel, and go grab yourself some of our brand new merch. You can find all of the links down in the description. If you're looking for some other Minecraft builds to explore, then of course, be sure to check out my Patreon. There are plenty of builds on there to keep you preoccupied in the meantime until the Ultimate Survival World is released. Also, if you have any suggestions, questions, or you just want to join the Blox fam community, then please join the Discord. We hold a bunch of competitions and giveaways, and it's a great place to make some new friends. And finally, a huge thanks to Steph for all of her help on the project, and of course to Jake Rivers for all of his awesome biome-themed music that you've been hearing in each episode. Now go show them some Blox fam love. And with all of that said, that's me done for now, guys. Thanks for an incredible year, and I'll be seeing you soon with the next biome. I promise this next one won't take so long.